So, what's the one fear that really holds you back? Today, we're going to dive into Deep Water, which is this incredibly powerful story by William Douglas. And trust me, it's not just about learning to swim. It's a deep dive into the heart of fear itself, and maybe a roadmap for how you can conquer it for good.
You know, this one idea, it's pretty much the key to the entire story. It's the central lesson that William Douglas learns after years of being terrified. A lot of the time, the thing we're most afraid of isn't the situation, but the actual feeling of being afraid. Just keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this.
So where does a lifelong terror even begin? Well, it rarely starts with a huge explosion. It's usually more like a whisper, some small event that just plants the seed of fear. And for William Douglas, that moment came when he was just a little kid.
Picture this. He's only 3 years old on a beach in California with his dad. A wave comes, knocks him flat, and just buries him under the water. It's a terrifying moment for a toddler, and it creates this deep-seated dislike of water. But then, years later, at 10 or 11, he makes this really conscious choice to face that discomfort. He decides, I'm going to learn how to swim. Now, he didn't just jump into any body of water. His mom was always warning him about the Yakima River, saying how treacherous it was. So he made a smart, calculated choice, the Yakima YMCA pool. I mean, it seemed perfect. A controlled environment, shallow on one end, deep on the other. It felt like the ideal place to start. But here's the thing. A safe place can very quickly become the source of your greatest trauma. And this is where the story takes a really dramatic turn. That safe space he picked out, it becomes the scene of an event so traumatic it would haunt him for decades, turning a simple aversion to water into a full-blown, paralyzing phobia.
So he's at the pool by himself, just waiting for others to arrive, when all of a sudden this 18-year-old bully grabs him and just chucks him into the 9-foot deep end. No warning, no reason. 1 second he's sitting by the pool, and the next he's sinking, completely unprepared for what's about to become a fight for his life.
What's really incredible is that even as he's sinking, his mind is still working. He's not in a full-blown panic. Well, not yet. He actually comes up with this rational 3-step plan to save himself. It just goes to show that even in a terrifying situation, his wits were still about him.
But a good plan doesn't stand a chance against real panic, which just completely distorts your reality. That 9-foot drop to the bottom, it felt like 90. The journey down seemed to take forever, and you can just feel the first cracks in his composure starting to show.
His first attempt to execute that plan was a catastrophic failure. His lungs were screaming for air, but all he got was a mouthful of water. His legs, which were crucial for that big jump, were totally paralyzed, like dead weights. He fought so hard to get up, but only his nose and eyes barely broke the surface before he started sinking all over again. The struggle was just desperate and all-consuming.
And this, right here, is the crucial turning point. The rational part of his brain just shuts down and something way more primal takes over. It's not just a struggle to breathe anymore. It's this stark, paralyzing terror of death. This is the moment that this experience gets seared into his mind forever.
After a third failed attempt, he's got nothing left. His energy is completely gone. So he just gives up. He surrenders. And in that moment of surrender, this weird sense of peace washes over him. A blackness sweeps over his brain, and it wipes out all the terror. He actually felt relaxed, almost peaceful, as he just drifted into unconsciousness. Okay, so he was saved, but the boy they pulled from that pool was not the same one who was thrown in. The terror didn't end when he got out of the water. In fact, that was just the beginning. That one single event cast this long, dark shadow that would hang over his life for years to come. The aftermath was just devastating. He never went back to the pool, obviously, but it was so much more than that. It basically crippled his life. Any joy he might have found in water activities was completely stolen from him. Fishing trips, canoeing, boating, all of them ruined. Just the sight or the touch of water was enough to trigger that same icy grip of fear. For years, he lived like a prisoner to this aquaphobia. But then came another huge moment, the decision to finally fight back. He just refused to let fear be his jailer anymore. So he hired an instructor to systematically dismantle the terror, piece by tiny piece. And the instructor's strategy was honestly brilliant. He didn't just throw Douglas back in. He broke this enormous problem of fear down into small, manageable parts. First, he used a rope and pulley system to create a foundation of safety. Then they worked on mastering something as simple as breathing.
And finally, he taught his legs, the same legs he remembered as being paralyzed, how to kick again. It was this slow, methodical reconstruction of his confidence. And you gotta understand, this was not a quick fix. This whole process was long and grueling. He started in October, and it took 3 months of painstaking practice before the panic even began to go away. It wasn't until April, a full 7 months later, that the instructor finally declared him a swimmer.
So, the instructor's job was done. But Douglas's journey? It wasn't over. Being able to swim in a controlled pool while someone was watching just wasn't enough for him. He knew the real test would be to face the water and the fear completely alone. This was the final battle.
He had to answer that ultimate question for himself. These tiny little traces of the old terror still lingered. He knew he couldn't just wait for the fear to strike. He had to go on the offensive. He needed to create his own tests to prove once and for all that he was the one in control. So he came up with 2 ultimate tests. First, a 2-mile swim across Lake Wentworth. And yeah, out in the middle of the lake, all alone, the terror did come back for a brief, icy moment. But this time, he fought through it. Still not satisfied, he went to Warm Lake and decided to swim from one shore all the way to the other. This was going to be the final conquest.
This was the true climax of his entire struggle. During that swim, when that old panic started to flare up, he didn't shrink away from it. He confronted it, head on. He actually spoke to it, mocking it, saying, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" And then he laughed. In that moment of defiance, the fear just completely lost its power. And he swam on.
And after swimming all the way across Warm Lake, he stood on the other shore and let out one triumphant shout. It was the feeling of total victory, not just over the water, but over all the years of darkness, the missed opportunities, and the psychological chains that had held him back. Just one singular, powerful moment of absolute freedom.
So what's the ultimate takeaway from all this? It's this profound realization he had. In the moment he actually accepted death, there was peace. The agony wasn't in dying, it was in the terror of dying. He didn't conquer death, he conquered the fear of it. Which kind of leaves us with one last question. What's the Mr. Terror in your life? And are you ready to finally turn to it and laugh?